Hi, how you doing? I'm Ben Wojdyla. This is Russ Ferguson.
Hi.
Today we're going to answer some questions on Saturday Mechanic. Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm Ben. This is Russ.
I'm Russ. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Mark. I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I've got a car that it's a 97 Acura. Sometimes it starts, sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't start, I've tried jumping it and it doesn't seem to help it. And then turn the key, sometimes doesn't click, doesn't do anything.
You got a ghost in there somewhere.
We got to know what model and engine is. Is this what model is this?
It's a Acura
TL?
TL
Okay. Yeah, that's the most popular that year. 5-cylinder or the V6?
V6.
Okay. Okay, so you got a 97 Acura TL. You turn the key, sometimes it starts, sometimes it doesn't.
It's not one of those, I turn the key and it cranks, but it doesn't crank enough. It's just nothing's there, right?
Nothing's there.
Sometimes.
Sometimes it just starts, fine, like
it
nothing's
should.
wrong at all. When I turn the key, sometimes it makes no noise, so it doesn't turn over at all.
Interesting. This is a perfect example of how to do a diagnostic search of exactly what's wrong with your ignition system, right?
Well, the starting system.
The starting system, sorry.
So just to be clear, we have a starter motor, and there's a large cable from the battery that goes to it. Normally, the starter motor gets its ground from the engine block where it's bolted to.
Right to it.
And there is a small wire that comes from your ignition switch. So what we are going to help you do is diagnose, is it the ignition switch that's intermittent, or is it the starter solenoid, which is actually a relay that's internal inside the starter. And when this starter solenoid is energized, it not only pulls the pinion gear, the small gear that's connected to the starter motor, and engages that with the large ring gear on the crankshaft, but it also makes contact from the battery cable to the internal connection that sends all those amps. You know, it's still battery voltage, but it's huge amperage. A V6 engine, probably not a cold day, but just a normal day, should probably draw somewhere around 175 or 200 amps. V8, probably 250. 4-cylinder, probably 125 to 150.
Is there a way for me to check that?
Well,
absolutely.
12 volts won't hurt you, but big current will. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is get an assistant. Hopefully you can get the starter from above. If you can't, then you're going to have to crawl underneath. What you'll need to do is locate that small wire, and if you have a test light, and they're inexpensive enough, find a known good ground, and
The engine block is a known good.
Is a known good clean. Don't go to painted surface, and take the test light, or if you have a voltmeter, that'd be handy to have too. And a simple voltmeter works great to have around the house for checking batteries. Just your regular flashlight batteries or whatever.
Should I check the car battery before I do any of this?
Yeah,
or?
it doesn't sound like his car battery is bad to
But-
begin with. Might as well check it while you're there.
Okay, and what you do there is just turn on your headlights and have someone observe, do the headlights dim? If the headlights dim, you've got a ground issue, connection issue, low battery issue, okay? But if you if the car on, the radio works fine and the interior light glows brightly, which I assume it will because you have a no noise condition. If you had a click or a stutter, that would drive me in that direction, a lack of voltage. But it sounds to me like you've got something that's intermittent, and it's either going to be the switch or the solenoid itself. And the solenoid's part of the starter.
So to test the switch specifically, it's a good idea to have your assistant in the car, and you're going to need to be under the car or in contact with the starter. You're going to want to find the small lead that runs to the solenoid, right?
The battery cable will be connected directly on a large connector, about 8 millimeters, 5/16, okay? And that'll be the battery cable. Next to it will be a small wire. It's about a 12 or 14 gauge wire. And that's the one that sends battery voltage from the ignition switch.
That's the one that gets the whole process going.
Right. So what we're going to do is check to see if you touch that small wire, this connector, the metal part, and you have it grounded, your voltmeter or your test light, and your assistant turns the key, if that lights up consistently every time you do that, okay?
Or shows 12 volts.
Or shows 12 volts, okay?
All right.
then we know the switch is good and it's sending 12 volts. In fact, maybe one of those times when you do it, the engine might start, okay?
Right.
But what
right.
we've verified is that
The switch is good.
And if
Okay.
you don't want the engine to start, you could disconnect that and then probe it, okay?
Okay.
Try. And if click, 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 every time you try it, the voltmeter or the light lights up, the switch is fine.
And that implies then that the solenoid is bad on your starter.
Correct.
If the switch is bad, then we'll get no signal. We'll get the light won't light up, or we won't get 12 volts, right?
Well, then he donates the car to the PM garage, and we can cover it in duct tape or something.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So how much is the new starter going to cost me then?
Well-
If it's the starter.
Yeah, if it is the starter, some of our viewers might say, well, why don't you tap it with a hammer? Now, when we do that, I like to use a mallet, okay? And sometimes that'll get it to go. That'll get you home. But then you got to go home and you have to diagnose it.
Right, and then the thing is, after you've tapped it and it works, you still have to go to work the next day, and the next
Yeah.
day, and the next day. So something is wrong, and you need to get it fixed.
Yeah. Now, a starter for that new is going to be probably in the 150 to 250 range. At a salvage yard, you're probably going to see it probably in the $50 range, $50 to $75 range.
The thing is, it's an Acura, so it's a Honda,
Yeah.
and it's a V6, so that's probably a common starter for V6 Acuras.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, great.
if it's the switch, we'll know that we've showed you how to prove out the switch if it's good, okay? And
Okay.
if the switch is good, then it's a starter, and there's really no, in the old days, starters had a solenoid that we could unbolt very easily. This is a gear reduction starter, and taking it apart and replacing that is kind of a thing of the past. Some of us mechanics still do that, technicians do that, but you could bolt one on, and I'm sure that would be fine. If, however, it's the switch,
Whole nother ball of wax.
yeah, and people think that the switch is there connected to the key, but usually it's not. The switch is along the steering column down by your knees, okay? And then it'd be a matter of making sure you could do a continuity check, you could do some things, but basically a matter of getting a new switch, and I wouldn't get a yard switch for
No,
that.
they're not going to be that expensive. It might actually be the same price, up to the same price as the starter.
Does your key
but-
turn well? Does it
Yeah,
feel?
the key doesn't rattle or
Okay.
anything when I turn it. It seems tight.
Okay. Did we give you some things to go on
Have we
there?
been any
Yeah,
help?
that
is
gives
what
me a
Russ-
lot.
Yeah.
Now you just got to get somebody over to turn the key for me while I'm under it.
Okay. Well, you know you're gonna have to buy him a pizza, but it's worth it to fix the car yourself. Thanks for
Great.
calling.
Thank you.